So next up is nutrition and Parkinson's, and I am so delighted to bring a couple of ambassadors to our panel here. I'd like to introduce Marty Acevedo and Edie Anderson from they're both Davis Phinney Foundation ambassadors and wonderful people, I might add. Marty was diagnosed with essential tremor in 2004 and with Parkinson's in 2010. That might feel like a familiar story. Marty is a registered dietitian and had a long career working in healthcare. She believes that food is medicine and one of the most powerful tools we have to help us live well with Parkinson's today and for many years to come. Today, Marty's going to be interviewed by Edie Anderson. Edie was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2013 at the age of 60. She developed Parkinson's after undergoing several surgeries and chemotherapy in her battle with breast cancer. Edie is passionate about helping others with Parkinson's and helping them to discover the benefits of exercise and nutrition and living well today. So Edie is going to moderate the session. I'm going to turn myself off, Edie, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Kat, for that introduction. And Marty and I are truly honored to be here with all of you today, and we're looking forward to having a wonderful discussion about the importance of making good choices with regards to our living well with Parkinson's. So Marty, let's start right in with the big question. And this has to do with motor symptom control. Can dietary choices affect motor symptom control in Parkinson's? And if so, what do we need to know?
Short answer to that question is yes. What you eat can definitely impact your health and your symptoms. We know that antioxidants and phytochemicals impact oxidation, chronic inflammation, protein aggregation, and mitochondrial dysfunction. And all of those are factors in the development and progression of PD. So it could be very helpful to include foods that are really good sources of antioxidants and phytochemicals like berries and fresh fruits and vegetables, grapes, my favorite, dark chocolate, and foods that are have higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids like olive oil, salmon, tuna, halibut, nuts like walnuts and almonds. Adding seasonings like turmeric can also increase the antioxidants in your diet. Our B vitamins are really important for brain health. And but it's really important to remember that moderation is key. Like just with exercise, you need moderation. You also need moderation with the foods that you eat, so that because everything kind of works synergistically and together, too much of one nutrient might impact the ability for another nutrient to do its job. And I really believe that we should get most of our nutrients from foods, food sources, not supplements.
Well, let me have you reiterate that. Hypothetically speaking, I'm too busy to stop and eat my meals like I should. And is it okay just to take the vitamins and supplements and cover all my bases?
Now, just like Parkinson's, nutrition it has a lot of empty holes in it. We don't know everything about nutrition. So there are probably nutrients that we are not aware of that play a factor in how our bodies work and our cells work. So it's really best to actually stop, take a moment, and eat a meal rather than take a multivitamin or mineral, a single source like one type of vitamin like B thiamine or niacin or that type of thing. If you're going to take a vitamin, it should be just a regular multivitamin appropriate for your age.
I see. And so taking a whole lot of them without any direction from a healthcare professional might be throwing your money away?
Very well, it could be. And who wants to take more pills? Like enough medications already as people with Parkinson's.
That's right. I think we take enough. All right, great. Let's move on to non-motor symptoms and how our dietary choices affect these. We're not going to obviously talk about the whole list, but we're going to hit on a few points, talking about sleepiness and fatigue, something called NOH, constipation, and then weight issues. And we'll do these one at a time. So let's start with the NOH. Can you tell us what that is?
So NOH is neurogenic orthostatic hypotension, or it's a drop in blood pressure when you stand up from sitting or laying down. It can cause lightheadedness and dizziness, and it's a result of the Parkinson's effect on our autonomic nervous system. We can help that with the foods that we eat and the intake that we have. Making sure you have adequate fluid intake, and additional salt can actually help to raise your blood pressure just a few points so that that's not so much of an issue anymore. Caffeine can also have a positive intake. Eating small, frequent meals and avoiding one large meal eaten at one particular time can also help with NOH.
I see. So I know when I'm at the gym, if I get up from the floor working on the mats to standing position, I can get a little wooey. So it's important, as you said, drink fluids. And also, if you have that problem, it's good to be next to a wall or a piece of equipment or something you can hold on to so that you can keep falling. Okay. All right. Subject that for many is an uncomfortable subject to talk about, but since 80 to 90% of us suffer with this problem, Marty, can you talk to us about constipation?
So not only is constipation a difficult topic to talk about, it's also uncomfortable to deal with for those of you who have constipation. And it can actually affect the absorption of our medication. So it can really impact our Parkinson's symptoms if it's not well controlled. On average, a person in the United States takes in about 5 grams of fiber per day. We need 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. But don't increase that fiber all at once or you'll pay the consequences. Slowly, very slowly, increase the fiber in your diet by eating more fresh fruits and vegetables and whole grains and like breads and cereals. Make sure you're drinking water, 8-ounce glasses a day. That's 64 ounces a day. And remember that alcohol and caffeine can be dehydrating. So if that's not working well for you, consider a supplemental fiber solution, but check with your doctor first, because taking too much or too little fiber can cause more problems and could actually lead to an obstruction. Assure that the fiber in the supplement consists of lignin, cellulose, pectin, gum, or psyllium, and exercise. Exercise is really important to deal with constipation. Go for a walk after every meal. There are some of us with Parkinson's who have to deal with irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea, or IBS mixed, and fiber and fluid intake can help with those symptoms as well.
So you already mentioned this, but I'd like to kind of go over it again. Maybe I don't like fruits and veggies. Is it okay just to take the powdered fiber supplement? Will that do the trick?
It can very well help. It's always best to get your nutrients and fiber and things such as that from food. But if you're not going to eat the fruits and vegetables, then fiber supplements can be a benefit. Just be careful in how much you take.
And the key to that is drinking plenty of water.
Yeah, drinking plenty of water, 64 ounces a day.
And I appreciate you weaving in the importance of exercise along with all of the nutritional suggestions, because really we do, if we want to get everything moving, we have to exercise, don't we?
Yes, I think nutrition and exercise go hand in hand. You can't talk about nutrition without also talking about exercise.
That's right. Tired. Sometimes we are just so tired to the point of exhaustion or suffering from fatigue. Are there any foods that you can recommend or suggest that maybe boost our energy?
Well, you need to take in enough calories and protein and in a wide variety of foods to meet your fuel needs so that you don't feel tired. Dehydration, again, can cause fatigue. So that water intake is really, really important. Again, 64 ounces a day. Drink a full glass of water every time you take your medication. Set your timer on your phone to make sure that you're drinking water. Caffeine can actually help with the symptoms of fatigue and feeling sleepy during the day, but try to limit the caffeine if it's going to impact your sleep at night. Mostly though, it's really important to make sure you're getting enough calories and protein to meet your nutritional needs. And then exercise, although it might feel counterintuitive if you're tired, if you get out and exercise, you'll be rejuvenated a bit, and it gets some endorphins going. You'll feel less tired.
Yeah. I'm seeing a pattern develop here. We're talking about good nutrition, fluids, and exercise. So
Exactly.
we got this little triangle thing going on. That's great. How about issues with weight? Some people have trouble gaining weight. Some people have trouble losing weight. One thing I've heard, and I'd like you to kind of help us with this. Those who undergo the DBS, or deep brain stimulation surgery, often say that they gain weight afterwards. Why is that?
Well, I had deep brain stimulation in 2016, and I can attest to the 20-pound weight gain after DBS. And I'm a dietitian. I certainly knew how to eat, and I was exercising regularly, but still gained that weight. And my theory is that because my dyskinesias went away, my internal and external tremors went away, that I was using a lot less energy. So, and the weight gain just came on. I'd rather actually have the DBS than the weight gain, but there are other things that could cause weight gain with people with Parkinson's as well, like some medications. Dopamine agonists can lead to compulsive behaviors or overeating and binge eating. And some antidepressants can lead to weight gain. So talk to your movement disorder specialist if you're on an agonist and you're exhibiting compulsive behavior, if you believe your meds are contributing to your weight gain.
Thank you for including that in the answer, because a lot of us, obviously, we take medications, and some of us do have to deal with weight gain as a result of that. So thank you for shedding light on that. Let's talk about the aging process. How does age, progression of Parkinson's, and the nutritional history affect the efficacy of certain dietary choices?
Well, aging bodies seem to appear to lose muscle mass as a condition called sarcopenia. And a doctor once described Parkinson's to me as accelerated aging. So that would make sense that people with Parkinson's lose muscle mass. You build muscle mass with exercise and making sure that your diet is nutritionally adequate. Progression of Parkinson's is different, as we know, for each one of us. But these symptoms, tremor, bradykinesia, and rigidity, can cause problem with the actual process of eating and drinking. If you can't get the fork to your mouth, you're not going to be able to eat as well. Weakness, rigidity, and bradykinesia also affect our vocal cords, our swallowing function. And if you're not able to swallow, you're not going to eat enough, and you're maybe unable to protect your airways, which can lead to problems like aspiration, pneumonia, weight loss, and malnutrition. Our autonomic nervous system is impacted by aging, as well as by progression of our PD. So our GI tract, our gut is impacted. We have worsening constipation, affects swallow, causes problems with digestion and absorption of nutrients, and we can develop gastroparesis. Bladder issues can occur as well, and we drink less water, so for fewer trips to the restroom. So there's things we can do for that. There's pelvic floor PT can help with the bladder issues, but it's critically important to get enough calories, protein, and micronutrients through a balanced diet and enough water. And if I could just go back to weight loss as being a problem for some people with Parkinson's, I think that is related to the increased energy expenditure from tremors, dyskinesia, and then the loss of smell and loss of taste. If you can't taste your food, that's going to take all the enjoyment out of eating a meal for you, and you may eat less. So it's really important to consider food as medicine, as Kat said, and just, that you have to exercise and you need to eat and you need to get through the nutrients, and that it's really important to make sure that your diet is balanced and that you're getting enough calories, and smaller frequent meals and supplements like Boost or Ensure can also be helpful.
Okay, great. I do have a diminished sense of smell, but unfortunately it hasn't affected my ability to eat. So, I still do plenty of that. Something that we hear a lot about is the importance of timing our meals and when we take our medications. Can you talk to us about that?
In some of us, certainly not all of us, the absorption of carbidopa, levodopa is impacted by the protein in our diet. The protein can compete with the levodopa for absorption in the GI tract, and also with crossing the blood-brain barrier to get into the brain to do its work as we need it to do. So if you note your symptoms and in your off time and how that's related to your meals, you may notice that your meds don't work as well as they probably should, as if you're eating a high protein meal. So generally, it's helpful to take your medication a half hour before or 1 to 2 hours after a protein-containing meal or snack. And if you experience nausea or intolerance with your medication, it's probably helpful to have a carbohydrate-containing food with that, fruit or juice or toast, something like that. One other thing, though, is that iron can reduce the effectiveness of carbidopa, levodopa as well. So if you're taking an iron supplement, make sure you're taking your carbidopa, levodopa dose at least 2 hours after that iron is taken.
So people might be thinking, that's like a juggling act, trying to figure out when should I eat, when do I take my meds? And it can be confusing, but like everything else, if you take the time to plan it out, to be aware of your schedule, and like you said, be aware of your on and off periods, then, you know, if you plan it out, it's not that big of a big of a deal, so to speak. It just takes a little work on our part to figure it out. So thank you for the light on that. Now, I'm hearing you say water, 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 and we've already addressed the issue, but because it's such an important subject, let's revisit it just one more time. Hydration. It makes us feel better if we're hydrated, but what can you tell us about the importance of drinking water when we take our medications?
It helps when you drink a full glass of water, every time you take your medication, it helps to get the medication to the right part of your digestive tract so that it can be absorbed and then used effectively by your body. So keeping a tumbler of water close by to drink so that you're always to have a sip of water or something to drink is very, very important. And drinking a full glass of water, not just a sip with your medications, can be very, very important.
So here's a big question people often ask me. What liquids count towards hydration? Can you count sodas, Gatorade, coffee, tea, everything? Does it all count?
Water is the best. Water is the key. But other liquids do count as hydration. But remember that caffeine and alcohol can be dehydrating, so those would absolutely not. And other sources of liquids can be just empty calories, like sodas, Gatorade, sports drinks, those things. So it's always best to focus on water.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna chime in from the back. Somebody made the mention, and I just want to make sure that everyone saw it, if your chat's not open, that carbonated water, soda water, is also helpful in helping your medications absorb well. So definitely do that as well. Regular water, totally great, but there's a little boost with some carbonated soda water.
Right, exactly.
With or without bubbles, they're both good.
Yes.
Good. Okay. And as was mentioned, some people just find it hard at the end of the day, they think, did I drink all my water or I didn't drink? Having it visually in front of you, I keep it on my desk. I keep it on the kitchen table when I do crafts or work a puzzle, or if I'm watching TV. If you see your tumbler of water, you're more likely to drink. And like you said, also, if you take extra with your medicine, a good drink of water, not just a sip, then that will ensure getting the full 64 ounces of water that most of us need. So seeing it is a reminder to drink. We're going to talk about those special diets, things like keto, vegan, vegetarian, and raw food diets. Is this just hype, or do they really help people with Parkinson's to feel and function better?
First, address going on a diet. If you go on a diet, you'll probably go off of a diet. So what's more important is to adopt a healthy lifestyle, one that includes balance of foods and from all the different food sources, plenty of water and hydration. You're going to get tired of me saying that, and then exercise. And what that means is that we focus on antioxidants and phytochemicals, making sure that we're using moderation in all things and a balance of everything. Plant-based diets are great, and that includes vegan and vegetarian foods, as long as you're getting the protein you need in the right combination that you need so that it works effectively in your body. And remember that there are a lot of junk foods that are vegan. My daughter is vegan, and she can recite to me that all the things that she likes to eat that are vegan, like Oreos and Doritos, things like that. So even if you're on a plant-based diet, make sure you're making the right choices. There's no bad foods, there's only poor choices, and we can all make better ones. Most clinicians, though, suggest Mediterranean type of diet because it includes everything that we need as far as fiber, antioxidants, phytochemicals, protein, calories, all the things that we need. And it also includes healthy seasonings like rosemary, turmeric, cinnamon, and then again, that favorite of mine, the dark chocolate. And all these, and then they provide all the things that we need, as I've mentioned, calcium, vitamin D, I hadn't mentioned before. Olive oil is good. So, but moderation in all things is key. I want to talk a little bit about the keto diet. The keto diet works if you follow it religiously and very specifically, with almost no, like 1 to 3% carbohydrate, 90% fat, and about 7 to 10% protein. Can you imagine how difficult that is to follow? It's like you're eating butter all day. That certainly isn't good for your heart health. So the study that was done on the keto diet was done on 5 people in Samoa. And they found that if following this keto diet for 28 days, they improved their symptoms, and that improvement lasted for another 28 days. But who can follow that type of diet? It's not palatable, and it is just very difficult, and you have to be strict in your following of it. What's really shown, and then cognition was also not improved with that type of a diet. What does improve cognition and neuroplasticity, or the growth of new pathways in the brain, is exercise accompanied by a moderation in nutritional intake.
Wow. In listening to you explain that, I'm thinking we have to change our vocabulary and not talk so much about diets, but talk more about a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly.
That's pretty much what you've been helping us to understand. And when you spoke about the Mediterranean diet, you did mention olive oil as a good oil. I'm sure there are other oils that are good, but tell us, are there any that aren't good for us that we should avoid?
Growing up in the South, my grandmother always had a can of bacon grease by the stove or a can of Crisco in the cupboard, and those are not particularly good choices. Anything that's solid at room temperature is not the best choice. So you want to go more with plant-based types of oils and fats. Olive oil obviously is the best choice, but you can also use other types of vegetable type oils. Those are okay.
Great. And I can't help but, you mentioned butter as a staple for the keto diet. I love butter, but I don't think I could live on it. And I think that your suggestion to do something balanced and take the best of all the different eating lifestyles, I think that's great. Now, something that many people with Parkinson's have difficulty with, and that is chewing and swallowing. You mentioned it earlier on briefly. Can you talk a little bit more about what can be done for that problem? Because it can affect our ability to eat.
It certainly can. Vocal cords are muscles. They are impacted by Parkinson's, by bradykinesia, or slowness of movement, rigidity or stiffness, and weakness. And it's impacted by our central and our autonomic nervous systems. Dystonia, which many of us have, that accompanies our Parkinson's, can also impact swallowing. So it's helpful to start a program that strengthens your vocal cords before you ever notice a problem. like with LSVT Loud, one of the gentlemen in one of the previous talks mentioned another voice project, Speak Out, Parkinson's Voice Project, singing, tremble class, playing a musical instrument. But if swallowing does become a problem, ask for a speech therapy consult. They can identify the source of the problem and identify ways that you can modify your diet so that you can best get the nutrients you need while still being safe. They might recommend things like small, more frequent meals, no straws, thicker liquids and solids, no mixed foods like no casseroles or stews, softer ground up foods, and eventually, as Parkinson's progresses, some of us may require tube feedings or enteral feedings which are fed directly into our stomach.
Well, thank you for shedding light on that. We all take medications and we often have issues with some side effects, things like nausea, heartburn, dry mouth. From a nutritional perspective, is there a way to manage these things?
Sure. Many of our medications cause nausea or gastric upset. So if you take your medication, as I mentioned before, with carbohydrate containing foods and maybe a little ginger ale or peppermint, that can help with the nausea. Dry mouth hydration is always helpful. Loss of appetite and taste, we tend to lose some of our taste buds with Parkinson's as it progresses, but we can still taste sweet and spicy. So that's why adding seasoning and spices can really help us to increase our intake. And again, I'll say treat meals as medicine. I mean, it's part of how we survive. So if you're not able to eat much, you don't have an appetite, or you just don't care, it's still important to treat your meals as medicine. And if it gets to be the point of where you have no appetite at all, you can always talk to your movement disorder specialist about an appetite stimulant. Constipation, bloating, and fullness, we've talked a little bit about that. The carbonated drinks can increase the bubbles in your stomach and contribute to a sense of fullness. Straws and slowing down, no straws or slowing down while you're eating can also reduce air that gets into your stomach. Compulsive eating, we talked about dopamine agonists. You have a good remedy for heartburn, I think.
Yes, I was going to mention, I appreciate you bringing up some things like turmeric and rosemary, some of the spices and natural things. I like to use papaya for heartburn instead of reaching for the antacids. So there are lots of things that are a little better for us than taking more medications.
Right. And then just lastly, when some of us take MAOI-B inhibitors for our Parkinson's symptoms, and the pharmacist often will say that you need to avoid foods that are high in tyramine, and that's aged cheeses and aged meats. And those should be avoided with certain types of MAOI inhibitors, but not necessarily the ones that we take as people with Parkinson's. So that's not generally a problem for us.
Okay, great. So that's the my list of questions. And as I mentioned earlier, I kept seeing this triangle that you were building for us. 3 really important points: making healthy choices, a good lifestyle, nutritionally, water, and exercise. I think that for me is the takeaway from your program. You shared a lot of information, and we certainly thank you for sharing that with us and giving us these things to think about as far as making good choices so that we can live well with our Parkinson's. And now I believe we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask some that have come in. So somebody asked about, Marty made a quick reference to a solution to bladder issues. What was it?
Right. Pelvic floor physical therapy can help with that. And it can really help if you have urgency or frequency. I've done that myself, and it's really made a real difference in my life.
Great. Will cooking food in a cast iron skillet affect your iron levels?
Yes, it can. You can absorb some of the iron from a cast iron skillet, but it's not, you don't really know how much. So if you actually do need an iron supplement, you should actually take the iron supplement then rather than relying on a cast iron skillet.
Okay. Great. You didn't talk much about sugar, except, you know, the junk food, vegan and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think, do you want to share a little bit about, you know, it's not good for anybody, but maybe particularly people with Parkinson's?
Well, we tend to have, as with people with Parkinson's, myself included, we have a treat sometimes. As I mentioned, the taste buds that continue to be active, and when we have a diminished sense of taste and smell, one of them is for sweets. So we have an increased craving for sweets. There's no need to really limit the carbohydrates in your diet, but it is helpful to be moderate in your intake of processed foods and sweets. You know, it's not good for anyone. It can contribute to weight gain. But the occasional cookie or piece of cupcake or something like that is okay. It's all about balance and moderation and good choices.
Great. A couple of people asked about gluten,
Gluten.
you know, and maybe along those lines, if you could talk a little bit about inflammation. So one of the things that with Parkinson's is that people have Parkinson's, but they often have other things going on, right? They're just
Absolutely.
living their life. They might have an autoimmune. So something like, you know, white flour, things that cause inflammation can actually exacerbate that. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, gluten is a problem for people who are allergic to wheat or have a real big to wheat, like with celiac disease. And so elimination of gluten in the diet is absolutely necessary for those people because they cannot survive with any gluten in their diet. Some of us may be sensitive to certain types of things found in food, like fructose and other things that are byproducts of digestion and experience bloating and increased gas. Management of these symptoms doesn't include a gluten-free diet, but there's no real problem if you want to try a gluten-free diet. It's just probably not going to help you as much as you might think. There's not been much research with Parkinson's and gluten-free diets. The only study that was done was on one person who had a positive result when he followed a gluten-free diet. Again, I'll go back to it's really important to have a balanced diet using everything in moderation and focusing on antioxidants and phytochemicals because they can reduce that inflammation that you mentioned that people are concerned about.
Great, thanks. Roger asks, what are some resources to help me adopt a healthy lifestyle like the Mediterranean diet? Recipe, menus, recommended foods. Honestly, the best is to go get a Mediterranean diet cookbook and cook your way through it.
There's also information in the Every Victory Counts manual that I have from the Davis Phinney Foundation. Absolutely, if you just Google Mediterranean diet, but basically it's fresh fruits and it's what you learned when you were, in my case, when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, the food groups, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, less red meat, a variety of foods, more of the plant oils like olive oil, and adding antioxidants and anti-chemicals.
Great. How about dairy?
Dairy can be a problem, and there's some research that suggests that low-fat milk can contribute to the onset of Parkinson's, but there's no association with anything that has to do with progression. It's thought that the dairy could be have been contaminated with different types of like paraquat and those types of things. But there's an association perhaps with Parkinson's and low-fat milk, but not anything that clearly links the intake of milk with Parkinson's and definitely not with progression.
Great. Yeah. And I think, you know, for the dairy piece, people respond so differently to dairy.
Yes.
And this is just one of those things that you can test for yourself. And you know,
right.
If you think you might be having a problem, you can go off of it for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Yeah.
I'm lactose intolerant, so I just don't take, I take either a lactase tablet when I have something with dairy in it, or I avoid milk and ice cream and those types of things.
Great. So we have a few more minutes if people want to put some questions in the chat, but also Edie, I would love for you to share you're very into this topic as well as exercise. Can you share a little bit about what you do? I mean, you look like a 30-year-old who is just ready to go all the time. You have so much energy and you're doing so much throughout the day. I know that you garden and you work out and you walk your dog and all of those kinds of things. What do you do?
I think you just said it. First of all, this current situation we find ourselves in has impacted all of us as far as having dropped back from what we're used to doing. I used to go to the gym 5 days a week and work out a whole lot more than I do now on in a different mode. I was, I think someone earlier mentioned being a gym rat. They used to call me a workout junkie because being at the gym and working out and sweating, I found was what drove me and kept me moving. But unfortunately now I'm not going there on the advice of my neurologist, and it's of course common sense. You want to be careful about exposure to things right now. So as you were saying, I garden, and I'm talking about digging dirt, holes, getting my hands in soil, moving bushes, trees even. And so I make the effort to exert myself. When I first got Parkinson's, I've always been somebody who liked to keep moving and exercise, but my neurologist originally said, be kind to yourself, go easy. And so I did. I exercised a little and I stretched a little and I did and I thought, oh, I'm doing really good here. And then I went to a conference and a physical therapist spoke, and she said something that stuck with me from that day on. She said, if you don't sweat, it really doesn't count. And I thought, oh, I'm not sweating. Now I sweat because I'm nervous when it comes to things like working with this technology and the Zooming thing. But, so I really put more effort into it. And so I just really do. I even got a puppy. Everybody thought I was crazy to go out at this stage in my life to get a brand new puppy. But I know that this puppy isn't going to walk herself. And when she has the call of nature, I can't say to her, sorry, don't feel like it. I get up, she has me walking a minimum of 1 mile a day. And for a 68-year-old lady who's got Parkinson's, I think I'm doing okay with that. Yay, that's my victory. So, and I'll admit my diet could use some improvement. We've coined some new words. There's pandemic fatigue, and I have pandemic pounds. We all have had a tendency to dive into the junk food cabinet a little bit too much because we're here and it's convenient. But thanks to Marty, she has reminded me of the importance of getting back on track with a healthier lifestyle. And I am going to eat a lot more fruits and veggies thanks to her encouragement.
And remember, there's no bad foods, only better choices.